Welcome to Weekday Somatics. Let's take a moment at the beginning to just be silent. And let me share with you my intention, because in my lifetime, I've attended meetings where we sat in silence, and I wasn't clear on what the intention was. So let me share with you my intention for why we might begin by just being together in silence. And by the way, you can be sitting, lying down, reclining, doubled over, running, whatever you want, whatever is most, whatever allows you to most experience or connect with that support that goes beyond your conditioned mind, your reactive habits, just for a few moments. And my intention for us is during these few moments that we just be in silence. And in this silence, we can observe whatever happens. There's no right or wrong. We're not trying to get anything. I'm not transmitting something to you. You're not to have any particular experience. It's just an opportunity to observe how wrapped up, how wound up you might be. And just to give yourself this opportunity to unwind just through observation. So without judgment, just notice your experience. Whatever it is, it's fine. Just for a few moments, just rest silently and observe your experience, and just allow it without interference for a few moments. Now, if you are already confident in your ability to inhabit this posture for the next 30 minutes, then just remain restfully here. If you would like to change your posture because you don't have confidence in your ability to inhabit this one for the next 30 minutes, or if you maybe have in this silence, maybe you've discovered greater confidence in your ability to inhabit any posture for 30 minutes, and maybe you want to pose a slight challenge to yourself, um, that would be fine too. But let's all choose a posture, whatever that is. Anything really is fine. You trust this silence within yourself, because from this silence, all truth flows. This is the source of wisdom. It's already within you. So trust this. Trust us to handle everything. It presents you with the perfect circumstances, the perfect everything. So we'll just choose a posture. And it's a posture that we can inhabit with confidence, which means in stillness, without a lot of movement, unless you have to drink coffee. That's ridiculous. Nobody has to drink coffee. So this silence reveals, if we're really willing, this silence reveals such inspiration that maybe we can become very excited. When that inspiration, that energy, that flow, that purity of stillness encounters habits of restriction, then what happens? So observe this in your direct experience now. Even if you think that you don't understand a word I'm saying, you can do this. I promise you. A child can do this. This does not require, you don't have to have any knowledge. You don't have to understand anything. All you have to do is just look, and I promise you, you can see what I'm pointing to. So just observe in your direct experience how there's a stillness here. There's a stillness right at the heart of your self. You don't have to think that that is true. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to agree. Just know that that is true. Know that what is here, what you experience right at the very center of yourself, This is stillness. Whatever you've called it, whatever wrong ideas you had about it, this is stillness. And then notice the immense energy that flows from this stillness. It's enormous. It's the energy of creation. Now, observe what happens in your direct experience. This, I promise you, you can do this. Don't overcomplicate it. Just observe very simply right now. So just innocently notice what's actually happening. You don't have to have words for it, but just observe it. Notice what happens when this immense energy flowing from this stillness at the core of your being, when it encounters some habit, some restriction, some no, a no, not this way. Like the water flowing through a river, and there's an enormous rock in the middle of the river. What happens? It's the same. You can discover the same thing happening in yourself. This immense energy is flowing, and then it reaches this obstruction, this no. And what happens? You can experience it. It becomes turbulent. Now, notice what happens if you remain identified as that obstruction. If you continue to identify as the no, if you continue to identify as that rock in the middle of the river, what happens? You are the recipient of all that turbulence. All of that energy comes right at you, and you are feeling that full force. And what? It is attacking you. It is assaulting you. So what do? You double down. Contract harder. Toughen up. Nose to the grindstone. You endure. I'm going to get through this. This is self-effort. This is self-effort, and it is fundamentally based on a wrong idea of yourself. There is no way that I am aware of to remedy that at that level. Now, see what happens if you have the right understanding of yourself. And whatever your mind might be saying, it's totally fine. You may be thinking this is wonderful. You may be thinking this is nonsense. You may be thinking this is too advanced for me. You may be thinking whatever you're thinking, it's irrelevant. I promise you, it really doesn't matter at all. It's so unimportant. And I hope that this becomes clear to you momentarily, how completely unimportant it is, because all of those thoughts, those are the no's. Those are the habits. Those are the ways, the strategies in which we double down. So let them, the positive and the negative, by the way, see how that's true in your experience. Every time you think you got it, that's followed by, oh, I didn't get it. Every time, without fail, because that's the nature of that level of experience. Up and down, 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 always. Why? Again, observing your direct experience somatically, really, truly, you can do this. Observe how you are aware presently of the obstructions. You have names for them. You have lots of names for them. I have lots of names for them. So I can't give you all the names right now, but just look, notice there's the I'm not enough. That's one. I can't do it. That's one. Life isn't safe. That's a good one. I can't get it right. That's a good one. I've got to try harder. That's a good one. But that's just a small sampling. There's also the oh my God, not again. When will this be over? Why me? Those are all good ones. And then there's the ones that don't even have words to them. That makes up the majority of them, doesn't it? It's like all those sensations that you don't even want to look at. They're just terrifying. All the sensations that have formed this constellation that you call yourself, that you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, not again. And I'm proposing that this exploration right now is the actual remedy. So everything that we have done trying to fix it has been further reinforcing the wrong idea of ourselves. This approach that I'm proposing to us now, that we're exploring right now, this is a true remedy because it shifts our level. It shifts our perception so that we are no longer clinging to the wrong understanding of ourselves. We begin to recognize who we really are, and we begin to recognize what all of these problems have been. And again, don't worry if you think you understand it or don't. I promise you, it doesn't matter. This is not about that. The understanding comes after the fact, if it does. If it comes at a cognitive level, it comes after the fact. It's a byproduct. Don't cling to that or grasp for that, because it won't give you the satisfaction that you want. Just look directly, very simply. As I say, a child can do this. And if your mind goes to town with that, then fine, let it, you know, what do you mean a child could do this? What are you saying? I'm not as skilled as a child. What's wrong with me? See, what the mind does, it just looks for problems. It doubles down on all of the obstacles. So instead, what's possible is that we can get the right understanding of ourselves. This is not an idea. It's not an understanding that we can wrap our heads around. We can't do that. We're not going to get a totally correct image of ourselves because we can't get outside of ourselves to see that. We can't get outside of ourselves to see ourselves. That's been our problem. We were trying to get outside of ourselves to see ourselves. And then we were maintaining this wrong image of ourselves as something, as some object, which necessarily has restrictions and limitations, obstructions, lots of no's. Now, this is it's a radical step, what I'm proposing. It's a very radical step. We've been cultivating the necessary trust. And many of you have been reporting experiences that are confirmation that you are indeed cultivating that trust because you're having the experiences that help you to know that something about this is real. Your mind says it's not real. But you know now on some level that there's something about this, as strange as it seems. Because let's face it, this seems really bizarre, doesn't it? This is so weird. Nothing that I'm saying makes any sense. And yet there's something that knows that this is true. Something that trusts and keeps coming back because there's a recognition. That recognition is true. That's the truest thing you've ever experienced because it's true, because it's really true. And now let's really take a step. Let's step into that faith by getting a taste of the right understanding of ourselves. So again, become aware of this stillness right at the heart of yourself. You can't understand it with mind. You can't get an image of it. You can't prove to yourself in your usual way of doing so that this is really who you are. Doubts will come. It's all fine. I promise you that as long as you are willing, just the willingness is enough. It's if you're just willing to be open to this possibility, to just look innocently, then I promise you, regardless of what you think, this is happening. So you don't even need to give any more attention, just for now at least, to whatever thoughts come and go, because you can just observe that really it's not necessary. There's maybe an appropriate time and place for the thinking mind. But this right now is not enhanced at all by the thinking mind. The thinking mind is just unnecessary for now. So just let it do its thing. Don't judge it or condemn it. That's just more of the thinking mind. Just let it be. Let it do its thing. Let the doubts come. Let the doubts go. And see that all of those doubts, all of the thinking mind's activity, all of that, all of the reactions, everything that you can be aware of, everything, all the images, all the memories, all of it, all of those are like rocks in the river. When you cling to them, when you identify as them, notice that you must make effort to grasp, to cling, to hold on to. It's a strenuous activity. Notice that you must actually do that. You can feel it. You can feel that you must do that. If you don't do that, and all of you have some awareness now of how not to indulge the habit of grasping, then something happens in your sense of yourself, and you might not have recognized it yet. So let me point it out more clearly. Again, notice this stillness right at the heart of being, at the heart of yourself. Notice that this is ungraspable. You cannot see it. You cannot understand it. You cannot label it. You cannot do anything with it, but it's here. Whatever doubts might arise, it doesn't matter. It's here. Whatever negation might arise, it's irrelevant. This is here. This is untouched by negation. It's untouched by anything. Now, notice this immense energy. And again, it doesn't matter what your mind has to say about this. Just be willing to observe, just as I'm pointing. You don't have to have the experience that you think you have to have. Just look in the way that I'm pointing. Here at the heart of yourself is this immense stillness, this vast stillness. And from this centerless, boundless silence and stillness emanates this immense energy. It's beyond any understanding how huge this energy is. Observe now that when you don't grasp, when you don't make any effort, when you don't seek to double down on the habits, when you don't condemn yourself for indulging the habits, but instead you just let go, surrender, release, give no concern whatsoever to any of it. If the habit seems to continue because it has its own momentum, give no concern to it. Notice what happens. This is a miracle, I promise you. What necessarily happens, it has to happen, is that the no's, the obstructions, the habits, they dissolve. They dissolve. Why? Why do they dissolve? Because like that rock in the river, they cannot withstand this power that is emanating from your source. Some of them seem to take longer to dissolve, and some of them seem to dissolve instantly. It makes no difference. The process is the same. Continue to recognize this stillness and this pure, immense power that radiates everywhere, always. When you identify as the obstruction, you double down, you cling. You can sense within your body sense the physical armoring, the grasping, the tension. The beauty of it is that when you become aware of that, what is being revealed to you is simply that you were making a mistake. When you become aware of a mistake, the wise thing to do is to give thanks. Thank you. I'm grateful to be aware of that mistake so that I don't need to repeat it. Imagine if you burned yourself on a hot stove. Now you made a mistake. What most of us do in most of the situations in our lives when we're being burned metaphorically is we grow angry or fearful. We blame ourselves or others. We seek to find where we should direct our wrath. Who has done this to me? I'll show them. Or who has done this to me? I must avoid them. I must run. I must hide. Now, if we did that with the stove, all we would do is burn ourselves over and over and over. Or we would just avoid the stove, and then we would not have any heat and we wouldn't be able to warm ourselves or cook our food. But it comes from the wrong understanding. So when we experience these indulgences of these habits, these unconscious, it's so innocent. You're not to blame. You didn't do anything wrong, despite what your mind says. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just a mistake. There's nothing wrong with you. It was just a mistake. Most of these mistakes happen so early in our lives that we don't even remember them. These impressions, these habits, these contractions, these ways of armoring ourselves, they've been with us for so long, we don't know that there is another way. We say, this is who I am. I'm this person who every morning when I wake up, my stomach is tight. I feel slightly nauseous. There's a band around my head. My negative thoughts are spiraling. I'm fearful. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to face the day. That's who I am. But that's not who you are. That's just what you've mistaken yourself to be. You don't need to fight with those habits. You don't need to fix the habits. All you need to do is be aware of them. By being aware of them, they dissolve. Why? Because you are that awareness. That awareness is that stillness. That awareness is manifest as this immense energy that nothing can withstand. Most of us don't trust that. We trust our minds. Our minds say, I have to work harder. I have to understand it first. I have to do all of these things. It's not working. I can't do it. That's a fantasy. I've got to, in the real world, I have to do all of these things. Nobody understands how hard my life is. Nothing can work for me. That's just a small sampling of the kinds of thoughts and beliefs that we have that we believe are true. We believe that these are actually true. Look and see, I promise you. If not those, there are others, you believe they are true. You believe that those are more true than this stillness, more true than this power. But look again. Just look again. Look innocently. Look innocently, like you don't know. Like, just be willing for a moment, just for a moment. What if none of those impressions, none of those habits are yours? What if they don't have anything to do with you? Just entertain that possibility for a moment and see through that lens, that lens of innocence. None of that has anything to do with me. That's not me. That's not my life. That's not truth. Just be willing just to entertain that and just see innocently and observe what's actually here. It's not hard, I promise you. If you're making it hard, just let that go for a moment. Anybody can do that just for one moment. Just let it go for a moment. If you feel certain that you must grasp at it again in another moment, that's up to you, although I would encourage you not to. But just for a moment so you can have a glimpse, because everybody can have a glimpse. Everybody. I don't care who you are. Everybody can have this glimpse just for a moment. Just let go. And you can see actually that this glimpse is always presenting itself. It's between every thought, between every breath. It's here. This glimpse is a glimpse of yourself, your pure nature. And all of the gripping, all of the grasping, all of those things, those are just the habits that you've wrongly identified as. This is what I'm sharing with you today is the most direct, most effective method or method within a method that I have yet discovered. So please understand that this is a method. You can use this method. And if there's a part of your mind that rejects methods, well, see that you can let that go too. Because the method points you directly to yourself and it points you to the remedy for all of your problems, all of them, every single one of them. Because all of those problems, if you look, you'll see that what I'm saying is true. You can discover this for yourself so that you don't need to believe it. It's just obvious. Every problem that you have comes from the wrong idea of yourself that you are attached to. You defend your idea of this body. You defend your idea of your personality. You defend your idea of what life is about. You defend all of these ideas, and that's your suffering. And right at the heart of yourself is this stillness that has no boundaries, no beginning, no end. And this pure energy emanates from it everywhere, always. Every obstruction, every habit that presents itself is a gift because it's an offering. Don't hold on to it. Offer it. It's not yours, but you are being blessed to be witness to this offering. The offering passes through your consciousness to bless you. How could that be a blessing? You might think, how could pain be a blessing? How could depression be a blessing? How could anger be a blessing? How could violence be a blessing? How could sickness be a blessing? How could blame be a blessing? How could shame be a blessing? How could these things be blessings? Well, I'll tell you from direct experience. Actually, I won't use words so much as I'll say this. Everything that I just said, blame, shame, anger, I could add so many things to that, resentment, fear, anxiety, depression, all of those things. Those aren't just words, those are actual experiences that I have received and offered. And the blessing of that is here now. The blessing of that is that you don't have to hold on. You don't have to endure. You don't have to suffer. We all are gifts to one another. There's nothing special or particularly important about me. But like all of us, I am a beacon. And when I choose to surrender and offer my habits, my self-effort, my wrong ideas, when I make everything in my life an offering, surrendering, releasing. This is the result. Because it points all who are willing to discover this truth within themselves, to discover that there is honestly, truly a real remedy for all the problems, and it exists here now, and it is closer than your breath. And it becomes real for you. That's the gift. So I promise you, whatever problems you think you have, be willing to surrender them, be willing to offer them to this energy, offer them to this source. Let them be dissolved and washed away so that the pure light of grace shines forth. The anger, the resistance, the frustration, the disappointment, all the rest of it, they are like clouds, storm clouds in the sky. But you're unaffected. Not the story of the human. The story of the human is the story of cause and effect. But this stillness, this awareness that you are, remains untouched. And it's possible to directly experience that. That's what I'm pointing to. We can each directly experience that now. We can each directly experience that by observing the habits, the ways that we contract, the ways we armor ourselves, the way we harden ourselves, the way we ready ourselves for the attack that we imagine is going to happen. And so I'll conclude the formal inquiry with this. Look and see that what remains when you don't grasp is what you've been looking for. Here is this safety beyond threat. Here is this perfection beyond any risk of contamination. And it's here, and it's obvious if you don't grasp, if you don't identify, if you don't cling, if you don't contract, if you just rest and trust and observe and allow the unwinding, then all becomes clear. And all of the wrong ideas of yourself necessarily dissolve. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, but it's certain, absolutely certain, absolutely certain that the wrong ideas of yourself will dissolve. You know that that's true. You know that this body, this lifetime has a limit. all things will pass, but you remain. And this recognition, I promise you, this will enliven this lifetime, this personality, this person, this body, because you'll recognize that none of it is what you thought it was, that you are safe, that you don't need to be protecting yourself. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to be right. You don't need to be respected. You don't need approval. You don't need love. You don't need anything. You don't need to understand anything. You don't need to have anything. You don't need anything at all. Why make all of that wasted effort when you can rest in this direct knowing of yourself as this beautiful light, and simply allow this beautiful light to emanate every moment, no matter what the mind has to say. The mind might say, I'm in pain, I'm a victim, poor me. Just rest, observe what you're doing, and notice that beyond that doing, there is a recognition of yourself as this awareness. This awareness is already perfectly safe. You are perfectly safe. This is the correct understanding of yourself. Remain true to this, even in the face of negative fantasies, even in the face of fear, even in the face of doubt. And I promise you, you will start to see that what I've been saying is true. Nothing, no matter how big the rock, nothing can withstand this power. And it's a power that flows effortlessly. You don't do anything to produce it. It's not yours. Everything that you've identified as is flawed, but this is flawless. If your eyes have been closed, then please allow them to remain closed for another minute. This has been very, perhaps a different kind of inquiry in some ways, although essentially it's the same. But this has really been very rich inquiry, whether you recognize it or not. And I promise you that this has softened a lot of those habits. But be aware that you have choice, and you can choose to re-identify and contract and go right back into the habits and fling yourself into a familiar state with eyes open and a familiar posture and a familiar sense of yourself, with all the habits of contraction and armoring and seeking and craving and disappointment and anger and all the rest of it. Which will not completely negate the benefits of this, but it will slow down the rapidity at which the habits can be dissolved, because If you keep clinging and identifying, you keep reinforcing the rocks. And the gift of this inquiry is that we undid so much. So much has been undone. It's a very beautiful gift, and you can receive it consciously if you allow for this to inform your open-eyed experience, your normal waking state. You can start to observe how your normal waking state has been a state of unconsciousness, a state of trance. You go through your days and you look back and where were you? You weren't there at all. You were in fantasy. But here you're present. You're aware of yourself consciously, aware of this open, spacious, untouched nature. But if you fling yourself into the open-eyed state, you can actually create a lot of disturbance for yourself, which you might experience as irritation, because you're trying to cram yourself back into the old form. But that's unnecessary. So let it be a gentle transition with awareness so that you can continue to inquire in this way, even with your eyes open. See that you can open your eyes smoothly so that you remain aware of this stillness. This stillness is undisturbed by the eyes being open. And see that you can move through your day from this stillness. Just notice that everything that comes up in your day, your mind will judge it. Oh no, not this. This shouldn't be happening. You can recognize from this stillness that this is an offering. Now you offer it, release it. Don't cling to it. Whatever it is, observe the habits of quickness to anger, quickness to frustration, quickness to disappointment, quickness to discouragement, quickness to depression, and see that you have a choice. Really, you have a choice. You don't need to do that. There's a new way. It's not the old way. It's not about either indulgence or repression. It's a new way. It's an offering. I promise you, this will enrich your life, every aspect of your life, your physical body, your relationships, your every aspect of your life, everything. I promise you, put it to the test and find out. I really honestly give you my word. If you do this, if you put this to the test, you will find that your life changes in miraculous ways. Your body will heal. Your relationships will heal. What you thought was impossible will be real. Your depression will go away. Your anger will no longer plague you. I promise you, it will be faster than you think. But you have to be willing to put it into practice, be open to this. trust in it and just keep applying it. This was a much longer inquiry than I had anticipated. I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you to everybody who has been here and who's watching this.